We'll call the regular quarterly meeting of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order on this beautiful Wednesday, March 27. And I suppose we should also pause for just a moment and remember it was a year ago that Nashville had the heartbreak of a terrifying school shooting at Covenant School. So this is a sad day for our city and beyond, and I know all of us join those families and the community in our thoughts and prayers. With that, let me welcome any other officials or media or dignitaries that are joining us on the live stream, and also remind the board that we are being live streamed and this meeting is being archived per the Tennessee State statute. We have a robust agenda this afternoon and some place to be tonight that I know we're all looking forward to. So I want us to have ample time for discussion, but certainly want to be mindful of our time as well. This building is buzzing today in the best possible way. We have had our SOAR events ongoing this morning with judging for the various contests, and we thank everyone who has taken the time to be here, both contestants and our judges. It certainly made for a lively lunch conversation. So it's fun to see this event come to life. Obviously, this afternoon is our board meeting, and we'll talk about this as we close. But tonight we have our reception together at the Country Music Hall of Fame, and hopefully some great participation from our state legislators and other state officials. With that, Chancellor, let me thank you, before we call the roll, for the vision that you have given to SOAR. How many years are we doing this now?
I believe this is our 6th.
Okay, wow, where is the time gone? So it's grown each and every year. There's so much energy to this. Miles, tell the group what you just said to me about the opportunity to serve as a judge this morning.
I would encourage every regent to participate if you can. Danny and I and 2 other regents participated today, as did our commissioner, participated in some of the events this morning. And if you ever wonder whether or not you're making a difference serving on a very positive board, I encourage you to go and interview some of these, especially the students. Looking at one of them right over there. So very proud. They inspired me. They led me down a path, led Danny and me down a path of they really are paying attention to what's going on in this system. They know this system and they appreciate this system. And it was just very worthwhile spending that time this morning. And Danny, you may want to add something to it.
Yeah, they really just fill your cup. You're just amazed at their stories, and you're amazed to hear them explain how TCATs or the community colleges have changed their lives and all the people there. I mean, they talked about their advisors, they talk about the faculty, talk about student services, they talk about the janitor. People that in those systems, all of them, that have really encouraged them along the way. They just really tell a story that you can't get on in the best made pamphlets and data. Sorry, you can't get that story. It's really worth the time, and I just have chills talking about it.
Thank you both. That was beautifully said. Thank you. Before I call on Mariah to call the roll for us, I want to, for the final time, since we're all finally in the room together, welcome our newest regent, Barry Stevenson. Thank you for being with us. We're thrilled to have you here. Barry, as you all know, is from Roane County, from the Oak Ridge area, and has served on the foundation board at Roane State and has been a great philanthropist to that institution. So we are honored to have you join us.
And I'm honored to be a part of the group.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And you may live in Anderson County. I might have just misspoken.
Actually, I live in Roane County.
You do? Okay. Okay. So your business is in Oak Ridge.
That's true.
Excellent. Okay. Very good. Wanted to make sure I had that correct. And as Miles mentioned, we do have in our very own student regent, one of the finalists for the SOAR Student of the Year Award. Leah, congratulations on being a finalist. Thank you. We're proud to know you. So with that, Secretary Perry, let's call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During roll call for our regents who are on virtually or dialed in, if you don't mind answering those two questions. First, can you simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, are you alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, you can simply say yes to both. Anyone who is not alone should identify any other people present in the room with the regent. Governor Lee. Regent Apple.
Here.
Regent Burdine.
Here.
Regent Garten.
Here.
Regent Gentile.
Here.
Regent George.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Gill.
Here and yes to both questions.
Commissioner Hatcher. Regent Hooper. Regent Kastner.
Here.
Regent Pilkington.
Here.
Regent Powers.
Here.
Madam Chair Reynolds. Commissioner Reynolds.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Roberts.
Here.
Regent Stevenson.
Here.
Regent Spurgeon.
Here.
Regent Varlin.
Here.
And Regent White.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Thanks again to you all. Let's move into our business now, and we have a couple of sets of minutes to take up. From December 12, our last regularly called board meeting, the quarterly meeting. And then again on February 28th of this year, we had a special called meeting. You have been provided copies of those minutes in our materials. Does anyone have any corrections? If not, we can approve these by unanimous consent, given their non-controversial and routine nature. But of course, if anyone would prefer to object, we can certainly have a roll call vote. Do I hear any objection to approving the minutes by unanimous consent? Hearing none, those two sets of minutes are adopted. Thank you all. Chancellor Tidings, your interim action report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The interim action report was included in the materials made available to all board members prior to our meeting today. This report constitutes a record of business transacted by the Office of the Chancellor since the previous quarterly meeting of the board. Madam Chair, pending any questions, I recommend the board's approval of the report of interim action.
Any questions for the Chancellor on the interim action report? If not, we also may approve this by unanimous consent as well, since this once again is a routine, non-controversial item. But if there are any objections, we'll take a roll call vote. Hearing none, the interim action report is confirmed. We have one committee report today, and that's the Audit Committee from March 5. Chairman Burdine.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The Audit Committee met in regular session on 5 March 2024 to review and recommend approval of the following items: external miscellaneous reviews, Comptroller's Office audits, federal audits, and internal audit reports, system-wide internal audit updates, university updates, fiscal year 2024 internal audit plan revisions, and an internal audit charter for Volunteer State Community College. Madam Chair, this concludes my report on 5 March 2024 Audit Committee meeting. As committee chair, I move that the board approve the report, a meeting of the Audit Committee as presented.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. We have a motion to approve the Audit Committee minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Regent White, thank you very much. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, we will need a roll call vote.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Garten.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
Regent Pilkington.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Stevenson. Regent Spurgeon.
Aye.
Regent Varlin. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Regent Varlin, some exciting news on our philanthropy efforts this
Yes.
afternoon.
It's my pleasure. The Tennessee Board of Regents Awards for Excellence in Philanthropy is a unique designation. Since 2003, TBR has been honoring the dedicated philanthropists and corporate partners who graciously donate their time and finances to TBR institutions through its Excellence in Philanthropy Awards. Today, we will acknowledge the award recipients from the presentations made on September 7th, 2023 and November 7th, 2023. Mr. Wes Stowers and his daughter, Miss Lisa Stowers Rotman, from the Stowers Machinery Foundation, accepted the 2023 Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy as nominated by Pellissippi State Community College and TCAT Knoxville. The award was presented by Regent Miles Burdine at the Pellissippi State Community College Blount campus on September 7th, 2023. The nomination and award is reflective of the Stowers Machinery Foundation's long-standing commitment to forming workforce partnerships and supporting higher education in East Tennessee. Stowers Machinery Corporation works to inspire, train, and grow the next generation of heavy machine talent in East Tennessee. Stowers Machinery employees are active in advisory committees for the Diesel-Powered Equipment Technology Program at TCATS in Chattanooga, Crossville, Harriman, Knoxville, and Elizabethton. The company regularly makes in-kind donations of equipment and components to enhance these programs. Stowers Machinery was a regional leader in establishing the TCAT Heavy Equipment Operator Training Program, donating over 100 hours in staff time to recruit industry participants and develop curriculum. Stowers donated aircraft flight time to visit Caterpillar in Illinois, to negotiate the purchase of operator simulators, and also recruited other regional industry partners to support the program. One of these innovative programs is housed at Pellissippi State and TCAT's Shared Workforce Development Center in Blount County, and is graduating students who are successfully entering the field, helping to grow regional businesses and expand the regional economy. In addition to their support of the Diesel-Powered Equipment Program, Stowers Machinery Foundation was a major gift donor to Pellissippi State's Bill Haslam Center for Math and Science, pledging a significant gift to the name of the building's central concourse. Stowers Machinery is an acknowledged leader in workforce partnerships in their region. Through exceptional civic responsibility and leadership, continued commitment to partnership and philanthropy, and generous giving of time and resources to TBR institutions, Stowers Machinery Foundation has improved the quality of life of East Tennessee, the TBR system, and its students in our community. On behalf of the Tennessee Board of Regents, we're proud to recognize Stowers Machinery Foundation with the highest honors of excellence in philanthropy. For additional comments, please welcome Pellissippi State Community College President, Dr. Anthony Wise.
Thank you, Regent Marlin, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings. Here? All right, sorry. Do that again. Thank you, Regent Varlin, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, members of the board. It's a great honor to have a chance to speak for a few moments about the impact of Wes Stowers and the Stowers Machinery Foundation and his family in the greater Knoxville region, which I know Regent Varlin knows very, very well. It's a veteran-owned business that has been in operation for years. They're making a generational change, but part of that family's commitment has been to education, and you've heard about their support for TCAT, for Pellissippi State. The Regent, President Cheney, is not up here with me to provide a few comments on her own today, is because she is working with the Tennessee Road Builders Association, making a presentation at this very moment, again through the support of Wes Stowers and the Stowers Machinery Foundation. They are truly engaged citizens in the process of education. The family is engaged in the K-12 process, the connections to the technical college in our community and the community colleges in our region. They really are exemplars of what we would like engaged businesses to be. Their impact has gone beyond just Knoxville, and you've heard about their impact about TCAPS or the region. They not only put up their resources, but they put their time and their expertise so we can improve our educational process. It's a personal privilege to know Wes and Liz and Lisa and the entire family, and to see the example of leadership they provide for all of us, their willingness to engage students in middle school and high school and at the community and technical college level, we are really fortunate that they are partners of TBR institutions and our system.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. And I would like to add something to that. I've been personal friends with the Stowers family for a long time, and they literally, this is just one big example of what they do in our community, in our region. He also is on our board foundation. Wes serves there, but I'd like to, because our TCAT president, Kelly Cheney, couldn't be here, as he said, and he adores her, by the way. They have this love thing going on, and he has been personally just so helpful. So I'd like to read her comments, if you don't mind. The impact of the Stowers family at TCAT Knoxville is truly immeasurable. They stand as a cornerstone in our community, always ready to offer support wherever it's needed. Through their generosity in giving both time and financial resources, they have made a lasting difference in our neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, civic organizations, the arts, and so much more. Wes Stowers in particular serves as a unifying force and is respected among his peers. His involvement in helping TCAT Knoxville launch the heavy equipment operator training is a shining example of his dedication to his community and the industry he serves so well. Because of Wes Stowers, TCAT Knoxville was able to see firsthand the Caterpillar Training Center in Peoria, Illinois, purchase simulators to launch the project and bring 10 employer partners to the table. These partners provided dozers, excavators, and fields of dirt for students to gain real-world experience. Furthermore, his collaboration with organizations like the Tennessee Road Builders Association has propelled the need for a statewide training program. This meeting's happening today with TRBA would not have happened without Wes Stowers' help. Kelly is at the board meeting right now, and it's a very big deal for her to be there. The impact of the Stowers family at TCAT Knoxville cannot be overstated. Without Wes Stowers' involvement in the project, it may not have come to fruition so swiftly. Their contributions as difference makers in our community reverberate far and wide. The Stowers family is humble, kind, and generous. They are salt of the earth with a huge heart for things that truly matter. Are there any other comments? I think we've covered it. They're pretty amazing. Okay. I have a second. All right. The second award recipient I'd like to highlight today is the Sells and Quarter Moose. Is that how you say it? Quarter Mouse? I want to make sure. Cotermus families. You think that's right? Okay. The Sells and Cotermus families accepted the 2023 Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy as nominated by Dyersburg State Community College. The award was presented by Associate Vice Chancellor for Strategic Advancement, Chris Perkins, at the Dyersburg State Community College campus on November 7th, 2023. This nomination and award is reflective of the Sells and, what is it? I can't say it.
I think it's Cotermus.
Cotermus, okay. Family's commitment to the success of students at Dyersburg State Community College. These two families have contributed to the Dyersburg State Annual Fund since 1987. The foundation since 1997 and had awarded more than 193 scholarships to deserving Dyersburg State students since 2003. The Sells and Cotermus families have a cumulative giving total to Dyersburg State of $553,172.70. Their generous support has impacted student lives and afforded Dyersburg State the opportunity to elevate the region's educational attainment. The Sells and Cotermus families are dedicated advocates of higher education, and their contributions reflect their commitment to educating our workforce and building our local communities. Both Darrell Sells and his son Darrell Sells have served as members of the Dyersburg State Foundation Board of Directors. On behalf of the Tennessee Board of Regents, we are proud to recognize the Sells and Cotermus families with the highest honor of excellence in philanthropy. And so is Dr. Cook here to offer additional remarks? There he is. I didn't see you.
I didn't either.
very much, Regent Barland. Good afternoon, Chancellor. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chancellor, Vice Chair Reynolds, and members of the board. Dyersburg State Community College is truly honored to have nominated the Sales Quartermoose family for the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy. Their support for higher education and Dyersburg State Community College in particular started many years ago when Darrell Sales started a McDonald's franchise growing to as many as 17 stores in our area. Mr. Sales always wanted to pursue a higher education. Unable to do so, he wanted better for his employees and provided numerous scholarships for them over the previous 37 years. His son Darrell Sales and daughter Dana have continued their father's tradition of philanthropy. As noted in the nomination, they have donated to Dyersburg State Community College since 1987, resulting in approximately 200 scholarships to deserving Dyersburg State students. The Sales Quartermoose family now have a cumulative giving total to Dyersburg State in excess of $555,000. They have been and continue to be advocates of higher education in West Tennessee, raising the educational tide for our entire region. To the board, Dyersburg State says thank you for recognizing the generous contributions of the Sales family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Cook. Are there any other comments? Okay, Vice Chancellor, or Vice Chair Reynolds, I want to call you Chancellor all the time. That concludes the Excellence in Philanthropy report. I've done that several times.
Thank you. I always take it as a promotion. I love it.
Actually, you might get paid for that
That's
job.
exactly, other than a legal pad and a pen.
That's right.
No, thank you, good job. And outstanding families. It's always fun to salute these folks who care so much about our system. Our communities and our entire system are blessed by their generosity. Thank you, Regent Barland. We do not have any unfinished business this afternoon, so we will move to new business where we have a consent agenda, a couple of items, and we were briefed on this back on March 5th when we had our committee chairs meeting. 2 revisions to 2 TBR policies, both regarding tuition fees, charges, refunds, and payments, a policy change for the community colleges, and subsequently for the TCATs as well. If no one has any questions with regard to these consent agenda items, I will gladly entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Varlin. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will need a roll call vote.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Garten. Aye. Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
Regent Pilkington.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Stevenson.
Aye.
Regent Spurgeon.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And on to new business. This afternoon, we have 3 informational reports. No action will be required by us other than your participation in these 3 reports and any questions or comments you may have of our presenters. And first, since we are in the midst of legislative session, Vice Chancellor McCormick, make your way up, please, ma'am, and tell us what is going on.
A lot going on in the General Assembly. We are right now in the height of session, and you all received a packet on your desk that is truly hot off the press. The administration released its budget amendment yesterday in the House and in the Senate. Committees are issuing their final calendars, and some committees have already shut down for the year. The Senate Education Committee closed last week, and we expect the House Higher Ed Subcommittee to close today. And we're very, very proud of that and happy for them. As you see on slide 3 here, we have Chancellor Tidings presenting the TBR budget to the House Finance, Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Ed Committee in February, and she did a great job as always. Now I will go ahead and go through a selection of notable bills that we've been tracking this session to provide a general status update. So first we have Senate Resolutions 167 through 170. These 4 resolutions confirmed Governor Lee's appointment of Regent White, Regent Pilkington, Regent Ross, and our newest board member, Regent Stevenson. All 4 did an outstanding job testifying in the Senate Ed Committee, and unsurprisingly, they passed these resolutions unanimously. So congratulations to all of you. All right, moving on to Senate Bill 833. This is a caption bill that was amended to do 3 things. 1, the legislation clarifies that the TBR faculty and student regents are not subject to Senate confirmation. The second adds a definition of quality non-degreed credential to the financial aid code. And the third makes changes to how a student's GPA is calculated for the purposes of eligibility for the dual enrollment grant. So this bill has passed in the Senate. It was calendared in House Higher Ed Sub this morning, and it passed, and it's headed to full. So if this bill does pass, our current regents will be the first and last to ever have to be confirmed before the Senate.
Lucky us.
Right. So Senate Bill 2300 is legislation to help fix an issue that has come up impacting financial aid eligibility for our LPN programs. Due to changes in federal regulations that go into effect July 1, 2024, a post-secondary program leading to state licensure must not exceed the minimum number of hours set by the state. If it exceeds those hours, it will not qualify for financial aid. Our TCAT LPN programs are at 1296 hours. The Board of Nursing has a minimum. The legislation will raise the minimum to 1296 for public institutions. It's passed in Health Senate, and it's calendared in House full this afternoon. So there's really some more that you need to hear about this issue because it's a little bit more, it's broader than just the LPN issue. So I'd like to turn it over to our General Counsel to discuss this.
Thank you. As Vice Chancellor McCormick said, the federal government has issued some regulations. They came into effect last fall. They were published in October. Well, actually, they come into effect effective July 1, but they were published last October. And what it basically says in relevant part is that if the state, either through a statute or a regulation, establishes a minimum number of program hours, then any educational program that needs to be approved cannot exceed that number of hours, or else it loses eligibility for Title IV, which is most of federal financial aid. So, for example, our Board of Nursing or our LPN programs have 1,296 hours, and right now the board has a lower number of hours there. So what we are trying to do is to convince the legislature to raise that number of hours so that we can continue to make the practical nursing program at the minimum number, that the minimum number of hours will be set by statute so that we can continue to offer federal financial aid. We have a 94.4, I think, % passage rate, licensure rate through that program, and our faculty believe that the 1,296 hours is important in achieving that, so that is what we're trying to do with respect to that one. And as Dr. McCormick said, it's up later today, so if I sneak away here I know it's to get there because I'm scheduled to testify in support of that bill today, so it's not that I'm just leaving. But Vice Chancellor Reed and her team did an excellent job of reviewing, getting through these, and making minor adjustments and tweaks where they could. The other 2 affected programs are massage therapy. The massage therapy minimum hours is set by statute, and there is a statute working its way through that will alter the minimum hours to allow our programs to remain Title IV eligible. And we're optimistic, I think. We haven't heard anything new that would cause us to dim our optimism that that will pass. The final one is the dental assisting program. Dental assisting is, it's the most complicated of them all. We are scheduled to meet with the Board of Dentistry on April 11 to enlist their help in trying to solve this problem that the federal government has caused by putting in the minimum number of hours. So we're looking at that. Chancellor Tidings will lead the presentation there to try to enlist their help, and Regent Pilkington has been very helpful in trying to figure out the best strategy on going forward on that one. If we don't succeed on any of these, then anybody who enrolls after July 1 or on or after July 1 is not going to be eligible for financial aid, or will be making revisions to these programs that we don't necessarily think are in the best interest of students, but might need to be made.
And I just want to add to this, to lean in and tell you, while that sounds like we've got this compacted into a nice little package with a bow on it, we have been working fearlessly trying to make the changes that need to be made before this is implemented as of July 1. I cannot thank Dr. Reed and JB for the work that they've done on this to get us to the point that we are. Kim and her team for meeting with the legislators. We've also met with our congressional delegations to let them know this is a federal rule, of which most of them were not aware had even happened. And while it is implemented July 1, we did get the word that we can begin a class prior to July 1. So we will have a class that will start under the old regulations, but then we've got this year to get all of this cleaned up and fixed. I also want to thank graciously Regent Pilkington for the work that she has done on this. As a dental assisting instructor, she has been invaluable in helping us navigate what we needed to do. The meeting that we have with the dental board, we have had some pre-conversations with them. We know that they are alarmed that we might have to change what we're doing in that arena. This affects thousands of students in our system, thousands of students. And so while it's just 3 programs, it's 3 of our most popular programs. So a lot of work being done, and I cannot thank them enough. And since I've also thanked Regent Pilgrim, I also have to thank Regent Roberts for the work that he has been doing behind the scenes to help us in some other initiatives that we've had, because between the 2 of them, I've kept them very busy the last month, and I am so grateful to them for their guidance and insight that they've given to us. So thank you both.
And we also need to thank Senator Rusty Crowe and Representative Esther Helton for taking on this legislation at the last minute. They took a caption bill and turned it into an amendment to try to do this. And one more piece is that there is federal legislation out there. A Republican representative from Pennsylvania is trying to carry some language to take care of this issue, but we don't see it getting a lot of traction yet. So thankfully we have a state legislature willing to try to help.
Regent Kastner looks like he has a question.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to understand exactly what's being promulgated here by the feds and our legislature. So the 1,296 clock hours, is that increasing the amount of class time our LN candidates will have to take?
Now, that's keeping us right where we are.
Right where we are.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, the problem is if your state board has a minimum number of hours listed, you can't go above it.
Right.
And for the boards that we're discussing, they put a minimum in to meet all kinds of different scenarios. Nursing is at 960, I believe, was the minimum that is specified right now. So there are some colleges that are teaching, some private colleges that are teaching that minimum, but the dental board has 141 as their minimum.
So there's a
That
tenfold.
we can't do a program in 141 hours, and not that I want them touching my teeth after they've only had 141 hours. So we are at a point where we have to do what we know is right for the students and the employers, and trying to navigate what this rule that the federal government put in place.
So there shouldn't be any effect on the appeal of our program to the LN candidates and to the dental tech candidates and the massage tech.
Most of them may never know this has happened. If we get this passed, I don't think students will know the difference, because what we're trying to do is protect their financial aid that they get. If the program is not Title IV eligible, they're not eligible for Pell.
Gotcha.
And then we would not be able to have it get state funding, because we have to have it Title IV eligible to meet the state funding guidelines. The majority of our students receive some type of financial aid. So we could run the program, but it just wouldn't be financially aid eligible any longer. So that would impact our students terribly.
So this, the Senate bill and the House bill, we're simply adopting what the feds are saying.
We're just trying to, we're
But
trying to
it's-
take out, or we're trying to get the board to say their minimum is now the number of hours we're currently teaching.
Gotcha.
We are not elongating our program at all. We're keeping it exactly like it is.
And are there other LN programs that are teaching below this 1296?
Not in our
Not in
system.
our system. No, but I mean in the state.
In the state, there may be.
There may be some. Okay. And for RN
RN
certification?
is not impacted in this, just
Okay.
LPN, dental assisting, and
And
massage
massage
therapy
therapy.
were the
Okay.
only three that had a minimum listed.
And then we also have our med tech and all that, and that's not impacted either, I assume?
No, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Regent Kastner, there are 26 LPN programs across Tennessee, and 23 of those are ours. So TBR produces more LPNs than any other organization and higher ed institution in the state. So it's critical to us.
And you really want hours.
And it is a huge need. As a healthcare person, it's an incredible need, so thank you.
Well, the next bill is a fun one. Senate Bill 2021 allows students enrolled at a community or technical college to taste alcohol as part of a course of instruction. The student cannot swallow that alcohol. They cannot drink it. This is for tasting purposes only, and it's for the distillery program at Motlow. Current statute says that can happen at the baccalaureate level, but not the associate level, so this corrects that so that Motlow can have their program. Senate Bill 1672 lowers the age of eligibility for the Tennessee Reconnect Grant from 23 to 21 years of age. It passed the Senate Ed Committee and was sent to Finance. I'm going to tell you something about what sent to Finance means in just a moment, because there's several bills here. In the House, it was calendared in House Higher Ed sub this morning, but it was taken off notice by the sponsors. Right now, most of the time, not with every bill, but right now, if anything is sent to the Senate Finance Committee, it'd be really difficult to come out of there because of the fiscal impact and the fiscal notes attached to the bills. But you never know, it's possible. Senate Bill 2327 would allow high school students to access the dual enrollment grant beginning in the 9th grade if they are attending a community college. This is something our presidents have asked for. At the TCATS, students can already begin dual enrollment in the 9th grade. So this is to add that over for the community colleges as well. It passed Senate Ed, but it was sent to Finance. In the House, it was calendared in House Higher Ed Subcommittee today, and actually it passed out of that committee, and it has moved on to the full, and it maybe will go to the floor in the House. So, we don't know. We'll see what happens in the Senate, but I was really surprised and pleased to see it make it out of committee this morning. Senate Bill 2666 requires TCATS to reserve an enrollment slot for each dual enrollment student in the term immediately following the last term in which the student was enrolled in the TCAT as a dual enrollment student if space is available for the student at that TCAT in the program in which the student was previously enrolled. Many of our presidents are already doing that and have been doing it. This has passed in the Senate and it has passed in the House. So this bill is moving on to the governor for signature. Senate Bill 2061 allows a student to begin using the Tennessee Promise Scholarship in the summer immediately following high school graduation. That is a very huge step for our colleges and for our students. It has passed both the Senate and the House, and it is moving for signature from the governor. So that's a wonderful thing for our students. Senate Bill 1783 permanently extends the 4-year pilot program to award completion grants to Tennessee Promise Scholarship students. The program is currently set to sunset in the 2024-25 academic year. This passed Senate Ed and sent to Finance. And in the House, it was calendared in House Higher Ed Sub today. and passed on to full committee. So that one still has a little bit of life right now. Senate Bill 1977, this is a bill by Senator Massey and Representative Hale to create a hunger-free campus grant program to provide grants to higher ed institutions to be used to address hunger on the institution's campuses. Of course, this is subject to appropriations. Requires THEC to administer the program if appropriations are available. It has passed Senate Ed, went to Finance, calendared in House Ed, and we will hear that this afternoon in House Administration. Senate Bill 1711 requires the governing board of each public institution of higher ed to adopt a policy regarding the use of artificial intelligence technology by students, faculty, staff for instructional and assignment purposes. This has passed both the House and the Senate as moving on for signature. I will note that originally, I believe the language said that there would be a rule rather than a policy, and it was amended. After working with the sponsors, it was amended to be a policy. It would be hard for us, we've talked about this earlier at lunch, to come up with a rule with AI when we don't all really understand what all AI can do to us at this moment. So policy, I think we can live with. Senate Bill 2741 requires a state governing body or local government legislative body to make agendas of upcoming regular meetings available to the public at no charge in a public place at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. It is passed in the Senate, and it will be heard in House State Government this afternoon. Council Lapps may want to elaborate on that. We don't feel that this is anything that would be detrimental to our board.
It's things we already do almost by and large. I think we're not the target of the legislation as to why there needs to be a revision. It's other boards, not necessarily higher education boards, but just other state boards.
Okay. And I'm going to move on as quickly as I can through these other bills that are still moving. Senate Bill 1937 creates a high-value workforce readiness grant program to be administered by the Tennessee Department of Labor to encourage individuals to pursue credentials in high-demand fields in the state. The bill was brought by Tech 901 from Memphis, but we worked with the sponsors. The sponsor wanted to continue to move this bill, so we worked with that sponsor to get the sponsor to include TBR colleges as eligible institutions in it. So if it were to pass, TBR would be included as well. It passed in Senate Commerce and Labor today and sent to Finance. And it passed House Government Ops and it was referred to Finance in the House. I will tell you that this bill has I don't remember the actual number, but it is a very large fiscal note. So I see that it would have some trouble making it through. Senate Bill 2528 requires each governing board of a public institution of higher ed in the state to revise certain policies and practices with respect to institutional accreditation. Specifies that a public institution of higher ed may bring a civil cause of action against an accrediting agency in certain circumstances. This one has been amended several times as well. It has passed Senate Ed and has been sent to the Calendar Committee and calendared in House Ed Administration today. So do we need to add anything to that one, Brian, or?
I'd just say this is one that we need to watch. I think it's certain sectors of society don't like what accreditors do. It basically says that an accrediting agency is not allowed to cause us to violate state law, and if an accrediting agency takes adverse action against us because of our refusal to violate state law, we can sue them. The problem with that is the amount of money we pay the accrediting agencies is not enough for them to want to do business with us if we're going to sue them. So I don't know fully where all the unintended consequences, but there could be some unintended consequences if it passes. So.
Okay. Senate Bill 2095 requires each public institution of higher ed to establish a policy, again, a policy, not a rule, a policy framework to promote the security of academic research conducted at the institution to mitigate against the risk of foreign influence. This has passed in the Senate, moved to Finance, and passed in House Administration, but it has been placed behind the Budget and House Finance. So that's kind of similar to being sent to Finance in the Senate. Senate Bill 2501 establishes deadlines for public institutions to complete an investigation into a report filed by a student or employee alleging that they have been penalized, discriminated against, or received adverse treatment due to their refusal to support or otherwise assent to a divisive concept. This one has passed in the Senate and has been sent to Calendar Committee to go move on to the floor. And it has been calendared in House Ed Admin to be heard this afternoon. Again, in consultation with Council Labs, we have not had a complaint, to the best of my knowledge, at this point. So we would not have a problem with a deadline for reporting.
We've had one complaint.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've had a single complaint. It was not a violation. It didn't even allege a violation of the Divisive Concepts Act. It just said it did. So this should not be a big issue for us.
Yeah, thank you for that correction. It was not an actual violation. All right. As originally filed, Senate Bill 2713 would do three things: abolish the separate governing board of directors for TSAC and designate the corporation as a division of THEC, revise the duties and powers of THEC regarding capital projects and academic program approval, and third, vacate and reconstitute the commission on July 1 of 2024. The House and the Senate have both adopted different amendments to this legislation, so we aren't sure yet at all what the final version will include. The House amendment adds a provision to the original bill that removes THEC's responsibility for setting binding tuition range. The Senate amendment rewrites the bill to only abolish the separate governing board of directors for TSAC, designate the corporation as a division of THEC, establish a process for THEC to issue a waiver for an institution seeking to set tuition outside of the binding range, amend language regarding new administrative or teaching locations other than an institution's primary campus, and require THEC to consult with institutions prior to undertaking a study or initiative that will require institutional resources. This is passed Senate Ed and sent to Calendar Committee. It's passed in the House. So we've got several versions sitting out there, and the story is still to be told. Okay, Senate Bill 2109 creates a mechanism for the management and governance functions of a governing board of an LGI to be transferred and assumed by THEC in the event a state board ceases to exist. This is passed in the Senate, passed House Government Ops, sent on to Calendar and Rules, so most likely heading to the floor in the House. This one is really related to this last one, which is Senate Bill 1596, which extends the termination date for the Tennessee State University Board of Trustees to June 30th, 2026. The Senate version of the legislation vacates and reconstitutes TSU's entire board. The House version partially vacates TSU's board, but retains a few seats. This is passed in the Senate, and it is calendared in full House tomorrow. So let's move on to actually the next two slides. I'm not going to go through each of these. I'm going to spare you that. But these are bills that are not moving on this year. And really the reason I wanted to show these to you is that all of these would have created statutes that would be challenging for the TBR institutions to administer. And they all have gone away for this year. And this is a lot of work, and I need to give a lot of advocacy, and I need to give John Williams and Patrick Boggs great credit for the work they've been doing actually in the General Assembly. But a lot of these, there's one that Dick Tracy has really been watching that actually moved on just a couple of weeks ago. It was Senate Bill 2102. We tried to work with the sponsors on this and couldn't find a fix, and Dick worked very hard on it. And finally, it was eventually taken off notice, so that was a good thing. So unless there are any questions on legislation, I do have one more thing that I want to share with you all. Okay, go to the marketing. So as you all know, the entire external affairs team is working very hard this week. They have been fundraising and advocating on behalf of TBR with legislation, event planning, moving furniture, and boxes and all the things they've been doing for SOAR this week. So I am really proud of all of them, and they've also been working very hard with the student success team in their efforts today with all of the voting and the competition. And then, of course, our volunteers across the entire system, also, mostly those within this TBR system office, but also people out on campuses have been helping too. So we thank them so much for all that they are doing for this wonderful week, and we know that it's going to be a great event tonight and tomorrow. But I do have one piece of information about one department within External Affairs, and that's Marketing, Digital Strategy, and Public Relations. So the Department of Marketing, Public Relations, and Digital Strategy, led by, are you ready for this? Dr. Matthew Gann. Yeah, he's not in here, but they recently received 13 national commendations for work from the Collegiate Advertising Awards. Awards received include 1 bronze, 3 silver, 9 gold awards. A few notable awards were gold for the Chancellor's 5-year report, multiple goals for the Trucking Tennessee campaign. I hope so, because that huge truck is really hard to miss if you see it riding around. Gold for Generation Education Courses Promotion, and gold for podcast promotion for Dr. Lemmings from the Vice Chancellor Shelf podcast. So again, I could not be more proud of this team. So those of you who are in here, congratulations. Most of them aren't, because they're down at the hotel or at Cordell Hall. So Madam Chair, that completes my report unless there are any questions.
Questions, comments for Dr. McCormick?
Kim, I suggest that as hard as they've been working, give them Saturday and Sunday off.
Or maybe Friday and Monday, I don't know.
Okay.
That was very generous of you. Dr. Gentile, anything in your world you want to comment on, since we're all kind of go through this legislative session together?
You know, only that I really do appreciate working closely with TBR and the universities as we navigate all of this together. Chancellor Tidings and I have had conversations already looking towards next year after we get past this session on how we can team up together and think through potential changes to financial aid and other policies to lock arms in arms together moving forward on that. So my thanks to your team and the great work that's being done behind the scenes and the committees as well. So thank you.
Oh, we appreciate you. Thank you. And as you see Dr. Gann and his team tonight and tomorrow, be sure to extend both our congratulations and our thanks for everything that's happening. So it is a great celebration of community. Thank you, Stephen. Dr. Fox, let's talk a little money now. And you too have some good news, I believe, for us today.
About the money?
on CFIs.
I do.
Yes.
I gave you a little spoiler at committee chairs. I know this is everybody's favorite part of the day. But thank you, Madam Chair, Chancellor Tidings, members of the board. Today I'm going to be presenting the financial performance of our community college and TCAT sectors for FY 22-23. In addition, included in your mail-out materials, you should have received a copy of the FY 23 annual financial report for the Tennessee Board of Regents system. This report includes the consolidated financial information for 13 community colleges, 24 TCATs, the system office, and our 6 locally governed institutions not part of the UT system. Additionally, this report includes financial information for the reporting entities' foundations. Both the annual financial report and the following financial presentation are informational items only and require no action. Now I would like to share consolidated financial information for the community college sector and the TCAT sector. TBR policy on institutional financial performance review requires that on an annual basis, the board shall be advised on the aggregate overall financial performance of the system's institutions. To aid in this assessment, we use various financial ratios that are widely accepted in higher education, including the CFI, which is the Composite Financial Index, and the Unrestricted Net Asset Position, often called fund balance or reserve. The aggregate results on the following slides will include sector average performance, the expected or target performance level, as well as watch levels. Next slide, please. The first chart has a lot of numbers on it, and they're really small. But again, this should have been included in your materials. But this first chart here is showing the total amount of adjusted unrestricted net assets or net position by sector and showing the change of those over time. The top half of the screen is showing the community colleges, while the bottom half is showing the TCATs. As you will see from the chart, FY 22-23 was a good year for both the community college and TCAT sectors. Adjusted unrestricted net assets for the community colleges increased by $96 million, while the TCATs increased by roughly $16.7 million. Additionally, this report tells us that the community colleges have about 11.7 months of unrestricted net assets available when compared to annual revenue. The TCATs have about 9.8 months available. Anything under 2 months is considered watch level, and 7 months is the ideal level. In TBR staff opinion, this measure of adjusted unrestricted net position is one of the best gauges of financial performance. It gives a clear picture of how much the bottom line is moving and in which direction. It also gives you some idea of the sufficiency of the fund balance level. Next, we will look at the various financial ratios that are used in the Composite Financial Index, or the CFI calculation. The CFI is a financial index that is generally used to measure the overall financial health of an institution. Next slide, please. I will briefly describe these ratios as we go through each slide. Please note that going forward on the slides, the green line you see is expected performance, the red line is watch level, and the blue lines show the performance ratio by sector. For efficiency purposes, we've included both sectors on one chart. In each chart, the community college performance is reflected in the bright blue line, and the TCAT performance is reflected in the navy blue line. I do want you to keep in mind, while these ratios are indicators of financial health, they're certainly not absolutes. Currently, we are looking at the primary reserve ratio, which measures financial strength by providing information on how long an institution can survive on current reserves or savings. The standard is 0.4, which represents about 5 months of expense. The watch level is 0.13, which represents less than 1.5 months of expense. As you'll see on the chart, the community college sector exceeds the target level of performance and has increased each of the last 8 years. The TCAT sector also exceeded the target level and improved slightly over the previous year. Next slide. The return on net position ratio provides information on whether the institution is better off at the end of the year compared to the beginning of the year. This ratio is one where the receipt of large, non-recurring state appropriations or gifts for investments in plant or buildings can create year-to-year volatility and skew the results, especially for smaller schools. The industry standard is 3% above inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI. The watch level is performance consistently below the rate of inflation. So you may recall last year when I presented this information that the CPI was at the highest level of the past 2 years in FY22, meaning all of our colleges were below the watch level for the first time ever since we've been reporting this. However, CPI has stabilized in FY23, and the watch level this year dropped from 9.1 to 2.97, and the expected level dropped from 12.1 to a much more reasonable 5.97. And you can see here both sectors exceeded the performance level this year. I will point out the TCAT line, which is the dark blue line on this chart, you can see here clearly the impact of those large non-recurring state appropriations and gifts that I mentioned. The spikes that you're seeing there in 2016, 2021, and 23, hello, $1 billion we got. You can see those spikes on the screen here. Next slide, please. The net operating revenue ratio indicates an operating surplus or deficit and is similar to a profit margin and provides information on whether an institution is living within available resources. The industry standard is 4%, which represents the amount needed to keep pace with growth in expenses and manage adequate reserves. The watch level is performance that's consistently below 0. Note that a deficit in a single year does not necessarily indicate a problem, but deficits over several years may be cause for concern. This ratio can also be volatile and can be negatively impacted by things that are outside of an institution's control, such as required pension, recording entries, depreciation expense, capital maintenance expenditures that are funded through capital appropriations. But as you can see here, both sectors perform significantly above the expected level in this ratio as well. Next slide, please. The viability ratio measures financial health by comparing expendable net assets to long-term debt and provides information on how much debt can be paid with existing resources. Again, this is one of the CFI calculation variables, so we include it here. But again, there is no slide because basically our schools don't carry any debt, so this is non-relevant to our calculation. Next slide, please. So the CFI calculation, or Composite Financial Index, is what's showing on your screen now. So to calculate the CFI, the 4 ratios that were just discussed previously are combined to provide a single measure of the overall financial health of the institution. Tracking the CFI over time provides information on the progress an institution is making towards achieving financial goals. The target is a CFI of at least 3. At this level, an institution is considered financially healthy. The watch level for CFI is anything below a 1. For FY23, both sectors exceeded the target level and increased from FY22, which is an indication that both sectors are performing well. Next slide, please. And for the last piece of information, I'm sharing the actual year-end performance for FY23 compared to the estimated budgets for June 30, 23. For the community colleges, you will see that the unrestricted education in general, or E&G, actual revenue collection exceeded budget by $21.3 million, or 3.2%. The unrestricted E&G expenditures were about $58 million, or 9.3% less than budget. Next slide, please. For the TCATs, you will see that the unrestricted education in general actual revenue collected exceeded budget by $1.7 million, or about 1.2%, while the unrestricted education in general actual expenditures came in about $16.5 million, or 11.6% less than budget. This data demonstrates the conservative budget management practices in place by our colleges. Next slide, please. So in summary, the adjusted unrestricted net assets calculation and the CFI score are the 2 main measures that we use to monitor the college's financial health. We include the unrestricted net asset calculation as a supplement to the CFI because it is generally less volatile and focuses on factors that are within the college's control. To summarize, 13 of our 13 community colleges increased their adjusted unrestricted net assets in FY23. 24 of 26 TCATs increased their adjusted unrestricted net assets in FY23, and the 2 that did not increase were relatively flat. 13 of 13 community colleges had a CFI above the watch level, and 12 of 13 are above the expected level, with the one that is below the expected level very close to that 3.0 expected number. 26 of 26 TCATs have a CFI above the watch level, 23 of 26 are above the expected level, and again, the 3 that are below are very close to that 3, and they increased from last fiscal year. So in conclusion, I do want to thank all of our colleges for their efforts and attention to their overall financial condition and performance, and to thank my TBR team for their extensive review of this data and assistance in compiling this information. Madam Chair, unless there's any questions, this completes my report.
Questions, comments for Dr. Fox? Dr. Gentile.
Hi, Dr. Fox. Good to see you today. I'm pleasantly surprised about where this is, knowing where the enrollment has been and the impact in state appropriations. So it looks like to me that the healthy, robust numbers has a lot to do with the expenditure side declining. Is that correct?
That would be the correct statement. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the schools have really been working hard on, tightening those purse strings and watching their expenses and cutting back when they, but yes, definitely, that's where we're seeing the bulk of our results.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's been challenging. Thank you.
Dr. Tidings?
I just want to lean into what Dr. Fox is saying with regard to our presidents. They have done not just an outstanding job, but an incredible job of managing their dollars in what has been a difficult time for many of them. So the kudos to them cannot be said enough. They are an amazing group of presidents, and they work on this every single day.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well done. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for the time and effort you're putting into this. And our final report for this session comes from Dr. Deaton and Dr. Moreland. We're going to talk a little policy and strategy here.
Indeed, we are. Well, Vice Chair Reynolds, Dr. Tidings, members of the board, we are excited to bring you 2 updates today, both information items, as said. The second one you're going to hear about, I'll start with first so we can segue into the first item on the agenda. But this board will recall the immense policy activity over the last really decade that TBR has engaged in around learning support, which again is the policy strategy we take to attack the academic preparation problem for our students. Over the decade, TBR has been a leader in that space, and over the last 3 or 4 years, it has gotten immense attention from this board and from the staff, trying to better understand its implications and some policy innovations that are in the offing. This board will recall last September, you approved a new policy that really shored up some aspects of the existing policy, introduced and reinforced some best practices in it, all of which really flowed from probably what is the most extensive research a state has ever done on student level data looking at the long-term impacts of learning support on our students. This was the Gaining Momentum report that Dr. Moreland and team authored a few years ago. So you're going to hear about some aspects of that that are continuing that policy, putting it in action. The policy really tries to lean into the necessity for colleges to innovate in this space. It encourages that innovation. And more than us just sort of saying that, we wanted to put some dollars behind it. And so you'll hear from Dr. Moreland about some foundation support dollars we have acquired that are now going to the colleges to encourage and promote innovations in that space. But first, she's going to tell you about an effort that goes back about 1.5 years ago when, with the blessing of Dr. Tidings, we approached the Department of Labor about a bilateral data sharing agreement between TBR and the Department of Labor that really tried to fit the unique needs that TBR had for more and better information that we can provide the presidents, the chancellor, and the board about the nexus between education and the labor market. Commissioner Thomas was receptive to that, and so we embarked on a process to produce such an MOU that would allow us that research. That is a heavy lift, and of course there are policy and data implications to it, which Chris Tingle on the team led. There are legal implications with help from Counselor Lapps, IT and data security implications from John Khaleesi and his team. Over the course of that year, we have worked through the arrangement with labor such where we are now getting a data flow once a quarter from the Department of Labor that allows us to build tools that answer the unique needs that TBR has, to provide the public, the board, the presidents information that heretofore was not available. It goes beyond what's available in existing data tools that other agencies in the state's P20 system can provide, and it allows us to see things that you're going to witness in a moment that have never before been seen, and that open up additional questions for us to pursue along the way. It is more extensive and more detailed, and frankly, more fun to consume than anything we've ever really done before. I do want to acknowledge, too, that, and this was sort of innocuously put by labor, but they were a little concerned when they were about to send millions of records to us, and could we handle that? And we assured them that we could. And so once that data flowed, and once it got into Amy's hands, the magic began to happen. So I'm excited for the team, for you, and for her to show you what she has built. And with that, Dr. Moreland, the microphone is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of TBR's research and data team, I am happy to announce the release of this new data tool. This tool is the result, as Dr. Deaton shared, of a historic data partnership that Chancellor Tidings and Commissioner Thomas at the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development established last fall. Through this data partnership, TBR and the Department of Labor are now able to share record level, individual level data between the two agencies on a regular and recurring basis. Using that data, we have built the first product of this partnership, but we certainly hope it is the first but not the last thing that we will build using this data. The new data tool that we will share with you today features post-college employment outcomes for graduates of TCATS and community colleges from 2009 to the present. It is a very comprehensive data tool that we are calling Careers Start Here. Today, what we hope to do is provide a little bit of background about our goals for this tool, what brought us here, to show a quick demo, a preview of what is included in this tool, and then perhaps most importantly, to talk about what it tells us about how community colleges and TCATs in this state connect students to economic opportunity. Perhaps, though, we could begin just with a bit of context. As we set out to establish this historic data partnership and create this data tool, it was TBR's mission of student success and workforce development that was the catalyst for this tool. At the same time, this comes at a critical juncture, because if you're like me and you follow news about higher education, it can sometimes be difficult to avoid reading in the news about the emerging research and discussion around the value of a college credential. So just in the last few weeks, if you read national news sources like Inside Higher Ed, you might see stories like this one that describe that more than half of university graduates are underemployed, which this report describes as employed in jobs that don't require a college degree. Or perhaps you've seen news stories like this one that describe how college graduates are earning wages that are not what we would call living wages or family-sustaining wages. This growing narrative and questions about the value of a college credential is pervasive. And in response to those questions, other state systems like ours over the last decade have created tools that put data in the hands of colleges to better understand how we are creating credentials of value. So our colleagues at the University System of Georgia have launched Georgia Degrees Pay, an interactive website that shows employment outcomes for their 26 institutions. A decade ago, the University of Texas launched Seek UT, a public-facing website that shows employment outcomes for graduates of their institutions. To respond to these questions about how we are creating credentials of value, we think it's important, and these other states have found it important, to connect colleges with broad access to high quality and recent data on the employment outcomes of their students. But Tennessee has historically lacked a tool like the tools that Georgia and Texas and Kentucky and so many other states have. And that changes today, because we have released on our website this afternoon 3 publicly available tools. The first of those I mentioned is an interactive data dashboard called Careers Start Here that features an in-depth exploration of employment outcomes and earnings for a decade after students leave our colleges. That is accompanied by one-page college profiles that highlight at a glance key data points for each community college and each TCAT. And then lastly, that is also accompanied by a short policy brief that guides users through how to use the tool and highlights some of the key data points that you will also see today. So what we'd like for you to do to really get a sense of what is included in this tool and how it might empower colleges to better understand their programs, we want to give you a sense of what this tool looks like. It is available on our website, and it's best consumed by sitting in front of your computer and looking at this. But we want to show you what it looks like before we talk about some of the key data points. I have a short video that I'll show you, and I'll talk as the video plays. I'll warn you that it may be hard to see on these screens. It is best viewed in front of your computer. But we wanted to just give you a sense of what is included in this tool and how comprehensive it is. So when you first visit that interactive data dashboard, you'll be greeted by a table of contents that allows you to navigate first to maybe an overview of outcomes for graduates, second to specific outcomes for subgroups of students, and then lastly to compare outcomes for graduates to those who enrolled but did not graduate. So you see that table of contents here. We're going to pick the Graduates Overview tab, sort of the main page. When you arrive at this page, you'll see some of the data points that this tool features. First, employment in Tennessee, how many of our graduates are employed, their annual wages, if they are employed, and then lastly, in which industries are they employed. Along the right-hand side of the screen, you can filter by a number of characteristics. So if Dr. Deaton wanted to see outcomes for Vol State, he could select his college, choose specific programs, and the visuals on this page will update based on how you filter the data. There's all kinds of interactivity. If we clear those filters that we applied and go back up to the top of the page, there's a navigation bar at the top that lets you filter through different views of the data. You can see the data regionally, by program, or by student group. And then at the very end, there's the ability to see outcomes for our graduates compared to students who were non-graduates. By non-graduates, we mean students who began at a community college or TCAT, but did not graduate and did not enroll elsewhere. And just as with all of the other pages in this tool, everything is filterable by college, student program, or student characteristics. So again, I know that's very quick and perhaps hard to see, so if you'll allow me, I'll highlight a few additional features of what you'll find when you look at that tool. It's important here to note that our colleges do have some existing data on students' employment outcomes, but the existing data that colleges have access to is limited in some key ways. First, a lot of the existing data on students' post-college employment outcomes is based on state or national estimates of what a hypothetical student might make if they graduated from a particular college or program. And we know that those state and national estimates can be limiting because you can imagine a student in rural West Tennessee may earn different earnings than a student who lives in Nashville, and certainly their cost of living may be different. And so those data based on state and national estimates are often insufficient for our colleges. Where colleges often do have rich data on students' post-college employment outcomes, it often comes from alumni surveys, where we call up students who graduated years ago and ask them, hey, do you have a job? And that can be a really rich and valuable data source, but as you can imagine, is also limited by the response rate to those surveys or the challenges of working with data that is self-reported by individuals. Lastly, many of the existing tools that are out there for our colleges to understand what happens to their students when they leave college, many of those tools are focused on the first year after students leave college, rather than being able to tell the longer story of how our programs connect students with jobs and opportunities. And so the tool that we are releasing today is designed specifically to address each of these three limitations. So rather than being based on state or national estimates, my favorite thing that I get to tell people about this data is that this is real students from our real colleges and their real earnings. This is not based on those state or national estimates that may feel distant or irrelevant to our colleges. This is based on our real students and these colleges' real students and where they actually went after they graduated college. Because of the richness of the data that's not limited in the way that alumni survey data is, the tool allows, as you saw, for colleges to drill down into a great level of detail that previously has been unavailable to us. And then lastly, this tool is not limited to just that first year after college. As you saw before and we mentioned before, this tool extends to show 10 years of employment. And that's just right now because we have 10 years of employment data. As we receive additional labor data, we will continue adding that data to the tool so that over time that grows beyond 10 years. If it's okay, I'd love to show you just a few examples of the data points that you will find in this tool, and each of these data points will illustrate the unique features of this tool as outlined here. We said first that this tool shows real earnings from real students and real employment outcomes. So one of the things that this tool allows you to do is to see an employment rate for graduates compared to non-graduates. So what you're seeing here is if we look 5 years after college, how many graduates of TCATs and community colleges were found employed in Tennessee. And we see here about 3/4 of graduates were found employed in Tennessee 5 years after college, compared to just over 2/3 of non-graduates. Here, this looks quite high level, but it's important to note that this tool does not stop here. Beyond this TCAT or community college level, the tool would allow a college president to drill down to see their specific TCAT outcomes or their specific community college outcomes. So for example, if the team at TCAT Athens were to explore this tool, they would click on their data and see that their employment rate 5 years after college is quite a bit higher than the system rate here. 84% of their students were still employed in Tennessee 5 years after college, the highest of any TCAT in the state. In addition to just showing how many students were employed, this tool can also show you the earnings, annual earnings adjusted for inflation, for those students who were found to be employed. So what we see here is that graduates, on average, 5 years after college, were earning $45,000 per year, which is about $14,000 higher than non-graduates from TCATs and community colleges. But once again, the tool allows for a great deal of additional exploration into this data. So let's say, for example, that Dr. Rothstein and the team at Jackson State Community College were to use this data tool, and they would see that community college graduates average of $46,000 per year 5 years out from college. But if they selected Jackson State, they would see that they in fact have the highest average earnings after college of around $50,000 per year. And if they were to further click beyond just that college level to a program level outcome, they would see that graduates of Jackson State's Health Sciences program earn $60,000 per year on average. And that's a good segue perhaps to the other unique feature of this, is that incredible level of detail that is available through this tool. In addition to being able to see college and program level employment and earnings, this tool also allows us to see in which industries are students employed. So for example, we're able to see that nearly 1/3 of all graduates from TBR colleges who are found employed in Tennessee are employed in one particular industry, in healthcare. And you see that here, 30% of employed graduates employed in the healthcare industry. These are broad industry categories, but again, the tool allows you to dig even further. So if you were to say, let's look at students in healthcare programs, where are they finding jobs, in which industries? Again, we're looking here 5 years after college. If you were to look at health science graduates broadly across the system, you would see not just in healthcare, but how many of them are employed in hospitals, doctors' offices, nursing care facilities, ambulance services, and so on. And all of this detailed data is again available at the college and program level. We're also able to see outcomes based on students' majors, so differences based on programs. Just as an illustrative example here, you see outcomes based on some categories of majors. And we see earnings after college are quite a bit higher for students in STEM programs, which largely captures mechatronics and engineering programs, followed by health sciences, manufacturing, and IT. At the other end, you see relatively lower wages in that human services category, where the average wages are just above $25,000 per year, and that largely captures employment in cosmetology and early childhood education. In addition to featuring real data from real students and their real employment outcomes and that great level of detail, the last unique feature here is the time feature. We've looked so far just at employment outcomes 5 years after college, but it is important to note that this tool takes a long view beyond just 5 years. So here you're seeing employment outcomes in the 10 years after college. You see in that first year, 85% of graduates are employed in Tennessee. Then that does begin to change over time, but the gap between graduates and non-graduates also grows over time. And similarly, we can look at earnings over time. In the first year out from college, the average wage for graduates was about $14,000 more than the average wage for students who enrolled but did not graduate. And that continues in the 10 years after college, where graduates out-earn non-graduates by about $14,000 a year. So if you total all of that up across that decade after college, graduates out-earn non-graduates cumulatively by $140,000 in that decade. Again, there's quite a lot of detail here. So just to reiterate, we are the things that we think make this unique are the connection to real data, all of that level of detail, and then as part of that detail, the ability to really look at how these outcomes change over time. Now, as you can imagine, with a tool like this that's very new for our system and quite comprehensive, there are a few caveats, a few limitations that we want to be really clear about. We've mentioned a couple of times that this data is based on real earnings that it's reported by employers to the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. But that means one of the real limitations of this tool is it does not include employment outside of the state of Tennessee. This would just be limited to employment in state, which is an important limitation, especially for our colleges that are located along state borders where students may find work outside of the state. So it's important that we note that, but it's also important to note that our colleagues at the Department of Labor and THEC and other state agencies are working now to help us all think through how we get access to that out-of-state data through multi-state data partnerships. And if that data were to become available from other states, we would easily be able to integrate that data into this tool to reflect that out-of-state employment. It's also worth noting here that the data that we're using is collected by the Department of Labor through their Unemployment Insurance or UI wage data system and reported by employers to the Department of Labor. But it is only limited to jobs that pay into the unemployment insurance system. And if you're familiar with that particular tax system, you may know that it is not comprehensive. It does not include most self-employed workers, many contractors. If you think about people who work in the gig economy, like an Uber driver, they are likely not included in this particular employment data. And then perhaps the biggest limitation is it does not include federal workers, including members of the military. So there are some limitations to that. It's estimated that our data source here covers about 89% of the civilian labor force, which we think is sufficient enough to trust the data here, but want to note it is not comprehensive. Another key exclusion here is that you'll see in this tool we are tracking students' post-college labor market outcomes based on the highest award that they earned. What this does not include is outcomes for students who completed at a TBR community college or TCAT and then transferred to a university. You can imagine a student who started at Motlow and transferred to MTSU. We need to give them a little bit more time to get into the labor market, to complete their program of study at a university. And that requires a slightly different approach for those students than for students who exit a TBR college and immediately enter the labor force. And so those outcomes for students who transfer to a university to pursue a bachelor's degree are not included in this tool, but we hope to include them soon in a forthcoming tool that addresses those outcomes with a slightly different approach to allow for that additional time for them to complete their program of study. And then last, but most importantly, we see this hopefully as a tool that informs colleges. We designed this tool with college leaders in mind. What that means is that this is not a tool that we primarily see as one for students and families. We hope that the data that's included in here can be incorporated into student-facing materials. But if you take a look at the tool, you'll see that there's some terminology, some formatting, some level of detail that might be overwhelming to a high school graduate trying to figure out what their major should be. And so we see this, again, primarily as a tool designed to inform college decision-making and their assessment of their programs, and hopefully that information makes its way into student-facing materials and activities. Again, these tools are all available as of today on the TBR website at tbr.edu/data, alongside our broader suite of data dashboards. As we wrap up this part of the presentation, I want to thank a couple of groups of people, one who is sitting behind me. Over the last month, we've had the opportunity to share all of these tools and conduct a pretty in-depth review of them with all of the college presidents, all of the institutional research offices, and a number of our state partners, including our colleagues at THEC and Labor. And they have all provided tremendous feedback and suggestions both about this tool and ways we might continue to use this data in the future. We also want to really thank our labor colleagues who have made this such a rich collaborative partnership, in particular their Wired team, their research and data team, who have been key partners throughout this. With that said, I'm happy to stop here to address any questions you have about these new tools.
Regent Kastner.
I'm first, huh? Okay, well, thank you. I think this is fantastic. I think one of our biggest challenges is how do we reach high school kids and teach them what the opportunities really are. And I think this is right on point. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You answered a bunch of my questions as you went on. I figured it was coming from the unemployment insurance data. And I think most people know that we pay a federal unemployment tax and a state unemployment tax on the first $7,000 of wages per year. What I did not know, but apparently is true, is they must still track my total wages throughout the year. That is the state unemployment office. And so even though I've passed the 7,000 and paid my 6% to the feds and whatever I pay to the state, they still know by the end of the year what my total comp was, I suppose. So
That's correct,
interesting.
yes.
And so I assume that we're using social security numbers to track people, and I always kind of get freaked out about in today's world of identity theft, and I'm sure that we keep everything totally secure and off the dark web. I worry about our state agencies, and are they good at that? One question that comes to mind is when you look at healthcare and you talk about the healthcare average earnings, you know, that to me, that includes med techs, includes CNAs, includes LNs, includes RNs, and there's a fantastic range of information there. And so when we include the CNAs and the med techs, it pulls down that average earnings. So, and I'll figure it out when I go on the website tonight, but can you sort it just to LNs and RNs also?
You can, and I think that's such an important feature of this,
I do too,
to go
because
beyond that category to those specific programs.
When we agglomerate things into just health services, it really, you lose the real information and the averages, and I think a lot of people don't understand that RNs today can make $100,000 right out of the box, and so kids that we're trying to attract, they need to believe that they can succeed, which we're a big part of that. They need to understand what the opportunity is, and doing this really helps solidify that and clarify that. So thank you. This is unbelievably great. Thank you.
Chair Reynolds?
Yes, I would have been disappointed if you hadn't spoken.
I couldn't miss this opportunity. Dr. Deaton and Moreland, I couldn't decide whether to just track back how long you all been working on this, or whether to just recommend that we institute a new award called the Long Suffering Award. Regent Kastner covered most of my comments, but Dr. Deaton, I know that this is 4 years old because I've been here that long. How long have you all been working on this?
Regent Gill, the overall effort to bring more data to bear for our colleges honestly goes back to the inception of P20 now 13, 14 years ago. This sustained and intense effort really began, again, about a year and a half ago when we just decided, and it wasn't out of giving up in any way on P20. There are wonderful folks at the Office of Evidence and Impact and others who are working hard right now on making that data available. But we just determined our needs were too unique, and we didn't want to wait any longer, and we wanted to build a tool that worked for us. And so the earnest effort began from Chris and Amy and the team with Labor about a year and a half ago. But it goes back, as you know, over a decade.
Well, congratulations. Thank you all very much. I think this is, it is, I think, in part of those of us and mostly all of TBR and THEC, it is a phenomenal tool to be able to understand where we're striking pay dirt, where we are adding the most value, all those kind of things. And this would be an exaggeration, but almost on the level of the creation of the tire or something like that, or the wheel. And I'm obviously appreciative of what you all done. Think it's a great day.
Thank you, Regent Gill. Let me ask, I'm going to turn to Regent White, but Commissioner Reynolds, are you still on the phone with us? She might have had to head to her meeting.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I'm driving actually. I'm
Oh,
driving I got school visits.
Oh, great. Stand by for 1 minute. I have a question for you on this. I want to go to Regent White first.
All right, so my challenge when I was listening to this is to see if I could find a stump you in here.
Ooh.
And I've got 3 of them I'm going to throw at you to see how you deal with this. The first one is someone who goes through a career change. So somebody who's in an occupation for 3 years and decides this ain't what I want to do, and they maybe take a step back, but they jump into a completely different career. So that's number one, I'm trying to get you on. Number 2 is, do you have a way of capturing people that go from a full-time to a part-time job, for whatever, a life circumstance comes up and they, need to kind of step back for whatever reason, and they're in a part-time role and therefore their earnings would come down. And then the third one, you may have covered this, I didn't quite understand what you were saying, but for someone who goes into a postgraduate, goes for a master's degree and potentially steps out of the workforce or, cuts back on their hours, cuts back on their pay. So those are my 3. I'm going to throw them out there and see how I did.
All excellent questions, and you have stumped me on one. I'll do my best, but if it's okay, I'll take them in reverse order. So to clarify, this tool tracks outcomes from the time of exit from a TBR college based on their highest award earned at a TBR college. So if they have any post-TBR college enrollment, whether that's they enrolled at a private or public or university or another college, anything after they leave us that we're able to observe through the National Student Clearinghouse data, a clearinghouse of most post-secondary enrollments, if they have any post-TBR enrollment, we are excluding them from this tool altogether because we think that requires a separate approach. That doesn't mean we're not interested in their outcomes, but that requires a different tool that's maybe a sister tool to this one. So as you think about whether it's a post-grad program or even just moving on to a bachelor's program, I think that is phase 2 for us, is the ability to address those questions. For your question about part-time, full-time, I think that's a really fascinating one, and it's one we've thought a lot about. For part-time, full-time employment, the UI wage data system doesn't capture any measure of part-time or full-time. It doesn't include hours. We would have to maybe guess based on their earnings if they were part-time and full-time, and that can be a little difficult, as you can imagine. What the tool does do, though, as maybe an attempt to address that, is it includes some filters that apply some qualifications to employment. So some of the numbers that we quoted here describe just any employment, any old employment. Even if they were employed for 1 quarter of that year and made $500, we're counting them as employed, right? But the tool gives you the ability to filter down to apply specific qualifications to their level of employment. For example, were they employed in multiple quarters and earned at least above a certain threshold of wages, which doesn't quite get to part-time, full-time, but is our attempt using the data we have to get close to some sort of qualified employment, more than just any old employment. And then for your first question about career changes, that's the one I want to give some more thought to, if that's okay. I don't think the current tool is well equipped to answer those questions about the impact for an individual who is changing careers, or maybe even as part of a career change comes back to a TCAT or a community college. That's not well addressed in this tool. But within this tool, we have linked to some other research we have done using P20 data. And one of those tools that's linked within this does begin to address some of those questions about people who are changing careers and pursuing additional enrollment or credentials because of that. So maybe we will add that to our list of future projects, if that's okay.
You never struck me as a gotcha kind of guy.
Mark's not here. So
But no, there you go. Commissioner Reynolds, quick question, and I recognize you're operating at a disadvantage being on a drive as you're so kind to call in and participate this afternoon. But what were you able to hear in this that might have applications, particularly for a high school guidance counselor attempting to give some advice and counsel to students looking at options within our system?
Yeah, well, I think what I did hear that I think, I would love to also get engaged in kind of thinking about additional opportunities for this. This really isn't for students and families. So I think that's the missing link, because there's an opportunity here to also give families and, counselors as well, some ability to be able to be guided through, the selection of their courses or their pathways through a TCAT or TBR program. So that's what I heard, and I was like, oh, we've got more work to do. I'm volunteering myself because this is the sort of thing that, just kind of thinking, how we continue to build the great momentum of the state and the infrastructure that it's provided, particularly in its higher ed space, is how can we use these sorts of tools to reimagine high school, right? Reimagine what courses students take that are going to lead them into whatever post-secondary path they want to go on to, and then kind of a little bit from one of the questioners about, that ability to be able to go on and off. So I think, on and off a pathway. So thinking about, say you decide, I want to be a welder, but you've seen that, and say thinking the Jackson TCAT, yeah, welders right now are in demand for building the buildings, but eventually, there's going to be a tremendous need for students with mechatronics, knowledge and those sorts of things to continue their work. So, like, how are you able to best advise students how to go on and off these pathways so that they can continue to pursue whatever profession they want to end up, or continue to go on. So that's what I heard. I don't know if I don't think I misheard that, but if I did, I'm happy to be corrected.
No, all good reflections. Amy, any response to that?
I think that was so well said, and you did not mishear anything. I think we see this as a tool first and foremost for colleges, and it is an essential next to equip, whether it's high school guidance counselors, college advisors, or students and families with this information. And we think that's best delivered as part of an advising conversation rather than just sticking students in front of a data dashboard, right? Which is part of why we've not tailored this to students and families. We see this first and foremost as a way for colleges to grapple with this, and then next get this data and the information of the hands of people who can help.
Thanks,
If I can
Commissioner, for
add
your comments.
to that real quick, because my
Yes.
question was like yours. This is absolutely fantastic. I think you may be underestimating the organic spread of how this is going to get used. Just like when you build a website, if you can translate it to French or Spanish or whatever, I would budget the money, because you said there were some keywords and it was targeted to the TCATs and colleges. I would build a separate site as soon as possible and target high school guidance counselors and public school people and private school people, because it's going to start getting used. I know in my community, I just took a picture and sent it back to my staff. This is fantastic, and it's going to grow. And I think we want our public schools and our school systems using this. And if all it takes is changing a few words, I would do that.
Thanks, Regent Spurgeon. Regent Powers has been waiting for a couple of minutes. And Commissioner, thanks again. We'll stay in touch. When you're stationary, just go to tbr.edu/data.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Drs. Moreland and Deaton. This is almost exciting as having Dick Tracy up here for me, almost. But I wanted to just ask a couple of questions, but I'm super impressed. How does this compare to what LGIs provide to their teams? Do they get this kind of information, or is this special and unique? That's, I think that is even more extraordinary in that way, because when you were talking about the other comps that you were talking about in colleges, I didn't see those kind of colleges come up. So the thing for me that I was thinking about, and I'm thinking just like Commissioner Reynolds, and I think some of the others here, is that I was thinking from a recipient side, not from a TBR system side. And in that way, I think that if you can show cost versus income, so in other words, if you are doing a 2-year certificate for this program, you're investing this much, partially paid for or completely paid for by the state, and then it takes you this long to recoup that, maybe 6 months in some cases, is a really great case to make to parents and to students, and again, to what everyone else is talking about from that perspective. And as a parent, I'll have to deal with that one day, so I'm thinking along those lines. And I don't want to disparage the four-year college, but I think the trade-off, and especially as I think about young people that are graduating right now or from high school or entering high school, it's pretty untenable to think about the inflation rate and the cost of living increases, and the middle class is really struggling. And so I just think this is how you make that case, and I love it. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for your suggestions. Those are excellent ones.
Regent Kastner, before I go to Regent Pilkington, oh, sorry, Mal, did you have something else?
Yeah, Regent Powers, I think you're exactly right. And when you look at what it costs to go get an RN, I think you can get an RN certification, pass the exam in 3 semesters here at Nashville State. And you can come out and make, I think, $90,000, and the cost is, what other field can you earn 9 times your cumulative tuition? I can't think of it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And so I think information is power, to your point exactly, Regent Spurgeon. And so, yeah, I think you're onto something that's just huge. I did think about your issue of when somebody quits and they become a stay-at-home mom, but you're working with averages. And so I think you're calculating an average, and so I don't think it draws the numbers down as much as we might fear. So I think it's just fantastic. Thank you.
Regent Pilkington, and then back to Regent Burdine.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I think this is absolutely amazing. I have 2 grown children and I have 1 8th grader. And even as an educator, I had the most difficult time. You know, he just registered for high school. And even as an educator, I had a hard time guiding him at that age on what do you want to do? What's out there, Mom? What are my choices? You know? So I just wanted to say, I think this is amazing. If I had something like this that I could have reached, or him, reached out and, give me some guidance. So just wanted to say, I think that's great.
Thank you.
Regent Burdine?
Thank you. Thank you. I remember, I haven't been a mentor for Tennessee Chiefs in the past several years, but I do remember they used to have a website where you could go on and look up how much these different jobs will pay. I remember sitting around a table with 4 or 5 of my mentees. What do you want to do when you grow up? And they'd mention, and I'd look it up and say, here's how much you're going to get paid. And somebody else would say, well, here's what I want to do. And I'd say, well, he's going to make a lot more money than you are. So it provided the information that I thought was very helpful at that level. But this is much more detailed. My compliments to you, Amy, for making this happen. Last thing I want to close with, I want to ask Leah if she would share her quick story that she shared with Danny and me when we did our interview today. And it didn't just come from you, it came from all 6 of the students that we interviewed. Leah?
Yeah. So for anyone who does not know my story, the high school that I went to was a private high school that specialized in college prep, and they tried to basically force all of their students to go to a 4-year college and go be a doctor, a lawyer, or something big and grand like that. I told them that I wanted to go into a trade, and I was not going to go to a 4-year college. And they basically took all of their hands off of me, and they're like, we don't really know what to do with you because you are nothing like what we've worked with before. We don't really know what trade schools are about. We don't know how to help you in a trade school. Are you sure you don't know, you don't want to go to a 4-year college? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I don't want to have that much debt, and I would like to complete school within 2 years and start making money full-time, and a full-time job. So the teachers just slowly, one by one, kind of stopped helping me with things. I felt like I was not their top priority as a student, which was very disappointing because, as I mentioned in our interview this morning, my tuition dollars were still the same. as every other student that was going to this high school. So as far as the teachers in the school were aware, my family was still paying the same amount of money as everyone else. I was just going to go to a trade school. And so I had to do the whole entire trade school search on my own, figure out what trade I wanted to go to, what school system I really wanted. And I found the TBR and realized that, you know what, that's where I'm going to go. I'm not going to go to a private trade school. I really want to go to a public trade school. And so I think having something like this would have been absolutely phenomenal. It would have helped me more than you guys would probably think. There were sleepless nights of me going online trying to figure out what trade I wanted to go into, what am I going to enjoy, but what's going to pay good, because I would love to one day be the boss of the people that told me that a trade was probably not the best idea. Like, I would love to be their boss one day and make more money than they do, and kind of like a haha I told you so, like see who's thriving now. And so I think that this is wonderful, and I cannot wait to see how far this takes so many students and the college system. And I would love to see some type of push forth for the high schools to start using this. And I would love to put posters on I want to go to every single high school and put posters up on the wall and say, hey, check out this. Like, trade schools are not bad. Community colleges are not bad. You want to know how much you're going to make? Here you go. Like, you know what, we need a truck just like the Tennessee trucking truck. And we need to advertise this with it because that would be wonderful.
We love the way you think.
To that school's credit, they did make some changes eventually, though. Yeah.
Yes, as I was leaving, they did make basically an entire switch. Everyone from the headmaster down to the janitor, entire system, the entire employment's changed. No one's the same there. So they have changed their ways. They even changed their name. They rebranded when I spoke up about what was happening. And I said, you guys are wrong for this. This is terrible. Like, I'm not going to, like, publicly bash you that bad, but you might want to fix some stuff. And then, 6 months later, they completely rebranded. So they have fixed their ways.
Regent Powers?
Yes, I'll make this final comment. I'm not trying to belabor it. Amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. I think it just goes back to I think schools tend to look for the, Stanford going students and the whoever, wherever, Ivy League colleges and whatnot, and they get lost in that kind of glamour. So on the flip side, if you can show return on investment as a pitch on the other side of things, so that if you go to their website, whatever school, and they have a thing that says 8 of our students are going to Ivy League colleges and 9 of our, on the other side, if you can say 20 of our students are, making $90,000 in their first year, right, or whatever. I think that story should be told differently than getting a degree does not pay always, but having a certificate in this case, immediately, 90%, what is it, TCAT placement rate, it's a no-brainer if they just tell the story at the school level.
Chancellor, did you want to say anything in closing?
Well, I do have one more thing I just want to make sure everybody is completely aware of.
Can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I had my hand raised.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
hey, this is Lizette again. No, it's okay. I just want to say, just from hearing these last two comments, number one, we all need to remember that college is everything. College is 2-year, it is 4-year, it is technical, it is post-secondary, it is apprenticeship, it is all the things. And the message that college is bad because it initiates this 4-year thought process, I think we have to be very careful there, because there are kids out there that would find extremely wonderful opportunities in a 4-year if that's what they choose. So as a higher ed board, I just want to make sure that we are very cognizant of the fact that if we do go down that path of 4-year is bad, 4-year is too expensive, for many poor kids, like the way I grew up, it opened up doors that I would have never had access to because of the opportunities for networking and meeting people that I would have never met in my hometown. So I just wanted, I know that I do get on my high box a little bit about this, but I think it's really important that we think of this as all college. And then I think too, what the student reminded us is this tool is not for kids. This is not for families yet. So we need to be thinking about how we take that next step as a community with THEC, TBR, the board, Department of Education, to really think about this very valuable tool that is geared towards college presidents and faculty, and which also has a great opportunity for transition opportunities to happen at that post-secondary level. But how do we bring it down in a way that families can make good choices while they are in high school to take the right courses, so they're not wasting their time taking courses that were never meant to put them on the path in that post-secondary, in whatever post-secondary dream they have. So that's all.
Thanks very much. Chancellor?
Chancellor, this is Regent Gill. May I make a quick response to the commissioner?
Go ahead.
There are, 18 of us regents? It is so refreshing to have one stand up and say, y'all need to be careful here, because it's awful easy for us to get headed in one direction. And I appreciate you, what you had to say. Thanks.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. There are great options for everyone. I think that's the bottom line. So, Chancellor?
Yes, I do. You heard Dr. Deaton say that this was a project that was about 1.5 years long. Well, what the reality of this is that it took us about 1 year and 5 months to get permission to use the data. Amy, I want you to tell them how long it took you to create what they saw here today.
So it was a team effort. We received the data in mid-January and then began sharing it publicly with the college presidents at the end of February. So we took about a month to build it.
Well, and thanks to you and Commissioner Thomas for having a meeting of the minds to work on this together too. Very impressive. Very impressive.
But it wouldn't happen without our geniuses.
Absolutely.
So thank you to each and every one of y'all that did this.
Well done. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for a great discussion, everybody. Amy, anything in closing?
I believe the next agenda item is also part of our update, and it is thankfully much quicker. So if it's okay,
Excellent.
I'm happy to roll into that second update.
Roll into it. And just for the purposes of the board, we're now going into our action items. So we need everybody to be decisive and ready to vote these next few minutes.
This is a conclusion to the informational reporting, and I will wrap it up quickly so that you can move to your action items.
Oh, there was one more. I beg your pardon, Amy. Keep going.
No. Happy to make this as quick as possible, as I know you all have important actions today. Perhaps as a segue to our second update, to get students to those tremendous employment outcomes that you just saw, we first need to do everything we can to help them be successful at our colleges. And for many of our students, that starts with learning support. We wanted, as Dr. Deaton shared earlier, to provide a quick update about important work going on at community colleges to improve the ways that they serve students who arrive at our colleges and are underprepared for college-level coursework. As many of you will remember, when students arrive at community colleges, they are assessed for their level of college readiness based on their high school academic achievement. And each year, nearly 2/3 of first-time students at Tennessee community colleges are deemed academically underprepared based on their high school academic achievement. Our colleges then enroll those students in courses that we call learning support, that are designed to help those students shore up their skills and build what they need to build in order to succeed in college-level coursework. It's important to remember here that this affects the majority of community college students across our state, and so getting this work right is essential given the impact that this has. You may remember historically, colleges like ours provided learning support, or what used to be called remedial or developmental education, through traditional prerequisite remediation courses, where when students arrived at college, they had to complete prerequisite remedial coursework before they could advance to college-level coursework. A decade ago, this board adopted a policy that changed that. And for the last decade, community colleges have been using co-requisite learning support courses, where students don't have to face those barriers or delays of prerequisite remedial courses, and they are instead able right away to advance to college-level coursework, what they are coming to our colleges for, while also receiving learning support courses through the co-requisite model, where courses are offered alongside college-level coursework. TBR Community Colleges adopted that innovative co-requisite learning support model a decade ago, in 2015. After that change, success rates doubled in 1 year in the key gateway courses that students take in their first year, think here like introductory math and English courses. For decades, TBR has been a national leader in this work in reforming developmental and remedial education through the co-requisite learning support model in particular. But as you look at the data, what you see in the co-requisite learning support model is that while we have made tremendous progress in better serving academically underprepared students, there is still much more work to be done. So for example, if you look last year at these students, 60% of first-time students who arrive underprepared, 2 out of 5 of those students returns for their second year of college. Most will leave after their first year. So getting this work right is the work of a lot of collaborative offices across TBR and with campuses. The work of learning support is led in partnership by across TBR's policy and strategy division. The policy implementation is led by Dr. Reed's excellent team in academic affairs. The work of learning support is also improved by Dr. Lemming and the student success team. And research and data is also an important part of continuing to improve the ways that we serve underprepared students through learning support. And you see here on the screen some of the things that this board has seen or taken action on over the last 3 years. You all have approved several policy changes that help our colleges focus on best practices and better connect the right students to the right supports through the co-requisite learning support model. We also have several research projects underway to try to find ways to improve the services for these students. We are announcing today the latest iteration of this effort to continually improve learning support. And what we're calling this new effort is CoRec 2.0. TBR is the recipient of grant funds from the Education Commission of the States through their Strong Start to Finish program. Through this program, TBR is one of 5 state systems across the country who was selected to continue our history of leading when it comes to developmental education reform. With these new grant funds that are coming to TBR, we will be able to support 3 types of activities at community colleges, all focused on continuing to improve the ways that we help these students become college ready. One of those is by working with college teams, faculty teams, to really think about how they are delivering these courses and to improve the delivery of learning support courses. More on that in a moment. The other 2 pieces of this grant project you see here, a key part of this is connecting the hundreds of very dedicated faculty and advisors who are doing this work across the system. They are often doing really excellent work at their college, but are unaware of best practices or research that's emerging at other colleges in the system. So an important part of this work will be connecting and convening them regularly. But the main part of this work is working with faculty teams at community colleges to design, implement, and test and research innovations to the co-requisite learning support model. We became national leaders a decade ago by innovating, and we want to continue that tradition. And so in the fall of last year, TBR released a request for proposals for a competitive grant competition among the community colleges. Basically, we said, faculty, bring us your best and most innovative ideas for how to improve the ways that we serve underprepared students. We know faculty have a lot of these ideas, but they often lack the resources or the time to really develop them. So we issued a call for proposals and said, send us your best ideas. We also provided them with research and resources to inform and develop their proposals. They had 4 months to do that, and over the last 3 weeks, we have reviewed their proposals. We received proposals from 10 community colleges, led by faculty teams, and we are announcing today the winners of that grant competition. So over the next 3 years, we will be working with teams from Chattanooga State, Nashville State, and Pellissippi State faculty teams, particularly in math, to pursue and research innovations to the way that we serve students in learning support. We are very excited to begin working with these colleges, and I think many of these faculty are watching today, and we are honored by the opportunity to support their work. We are also grateful to all of the colleges that participated in this grant project, and look forward to bringing back to you as a board updates about how and whether these innovation efforts promote student success. And with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions about this update.
Anybody? Danny?
This really speaks to me. 50 years ago, I was that student that had to take math because I'm an English major. But I remember how frustrating to go through this whole course, a whole semester, when I didn't really need all that. So I was thrilled when this happened 10 years ago, but I'm even more so that this has become an opportunity for people to make it even better, because it's really disheartening, as y'all know, and it's like, okay, I went off to college, blah, 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 and now I'm here doing high school again, and I hated it the first time I did it. I'm sure not interested in doing it again in terms of math. So just getting you to where you need to be, especially, it's not like I want to be an engineer, for goodness sakes. So it's, it just makes me so happy. Yeah, wonderful. And I'm not surprised at the 3 winners.
Anybody else? It's not that she didn't want to be an engineer, Regent Powers.
No offense taken. Well, you might not be able to be an English major.
Anyone else? Well, again, you guys just continue the great track record of all this work over the years. So it's a lot of work. Congratulations to these 3 for the work that's ongoing, and we'll all continue to learn and grow. This has been a maturation process and evolving over time. So thank you. We ready to move on to new business now? So sorry for my rushing us through. All right, thank you. Russ, you are up. We've got some action items in store, and let's begin with a name change at a TCAT.
Indeed. A few years ago, you will recall that the Tennessee Code changed to authorize the board to consolidate TCATs. We have done this twice previously with TCAT Northwest, where we consolidated Ripley, New Bern, and Covington. The TCAT consolidation for what is now called Henry Carroll, the old McKenzie and Paris TCATs, is almost complete. This board authorized the 3rd of those last year, TCATs Crossville and Livingston. Today, we bring you an intermediate step in that process to change the name of TCAT Crossville to TCAT Upper Cumberland, its geographic designation. It's a key part of the process. Eventually, that will become the name of the consolidated college overall when the consolidation is done here in another year or so. President Whiteman is here to answer questions about it. That name has been fully vetted from locals in the community and those here at TBR, and we feel it is the appropriate name for the new college. Happy to go into further detail if any is required.
Any questions for Russ or President Whiteman on this? We've all heard about this. There's been a lot of work going into this. Again, we've got some great examples to build on. If there are no questions or comments, we would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Pilkington. Anyone else? Any discussion? Regent Spurgeon, did you have something?
No, I just missed the second.
Okay. We'll note your enthusiasm. Thank you. Any further discussion? Dr. Deaton, are you ready? I think we are.
Yes, ma'am.
Mariah, let's call the roll.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Garten.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
Regent Pilkington.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Stevenson.
Aye.
Regent Spurgeon.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, sir. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Dr. Reed, we haven't heard from you today.
Well,
Good
let's
to see
change that right away. Greetings, Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Titans, and members of the board. It's my pleasure to present to you faculty emeritus nominations. TBR Faculty Emeritus Policy 5.02.01.10 governs the submission, the review, and the approval process. College presidents will nominate candidates based on distinguished institutional service. Presidents can confer with other staff on the campus, but the nomination is at the sole discretion of the president. Although there's no specific criteria, selection is historically based on length of service, significant contribution, outstanding academic achievement, and exceptional embodiment of institutional values. Non-monetary benefits for faculty emeriti can be afforded at the discretion of that president. Examples may be office space, library cards, free admission to arts and athletic events, or ID card with an honorary title. Nominations are reviewed by my office and require the chancellor's as well as the board's approval due to the prestige of this title and the continuing status of representing the college and the system. We have 5 nominations for the board's consideration today, and their materials have been provided in your packet. We have Cliff Rockstead, Assistant Professor at Nashville State, Barry Tompkins, Master Diesel Powered Equipment Technology Instructor at TCAT Northwest, Malaya Lewis, Associate Professor Communications and Theater at Dyersburg State, E. Kame Hoke, a Professor of Chemistry at Dyersburg State, and Rod Martin, Associate Professor of Natural Sciences at Dyersburg State. Madam Chair, this is the summary of our recommendations for faculty emeritus. This has been reviewed by staff, and I'm recommending it for action by the board today.
Thank you. I'm always struck by just the quality of these folks that come before us, the institutional knowledge that unfortunately has walked out our doors. However, in this case, many of these folks have stayed active as adjunct faculty and stayed active with the colleges in other ways, and that's just so impressive. So well done. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Dr. Reed? Hearing none, this is a non-controversial and routine nature for this request. I would propose that we adopt.
Madam Chair?
Not this, thank you. What is happening to me this afternoon? I jumped ahead again. Back to the top of the page. The family emeritus request will require a motion and a second. My apologies, everyone. May I have a motion?
Kyle wants to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Kyle wants to make the motion.
I'm so honored. So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mariah just wanted to call the roll one more time.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Garten.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
Regent Pilkington.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Madam Chair Reynolds. Aye. Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Stevenson.
Aye.
Regent Spurgeon.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. Aye. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Reed, we have what should be a rather routine and non-controversial item for discussion, some TCAP program approvals.
Yes, thank you. Next slide, please. TBR Policy 2.01.02.00 on Technical College Program Review and Approval requires our board to approve all proposed actions pertaining to the establishment of diploma and certificate programs. Also, the Council on Occupational Education, COE, requires this documentation from our governing agency. 7 program proposals and 52 program modifications are being presented to you today for your approval. Next slide, please. We have 3 programs that are being replicated. TCAT Harriman is replicating their existing machine tool technology program. TCAT Northwest is replicating their existing administrative office technology program. And TCAT Shelbyville will replicate their welding technology program at another campus. Next slide, please. We have 4 new implementations of program. TCAT Elizabethton will implement the heavy equipment operator program. And TCAT Jackson at 3 different campuses will be implementing the information and infrastructure technology program. Next slide, please. You can go one more slide. For program modifications, to meet the requirements of COE, 52 program modifications have been presented for your review and approval. These 52 modifications include academic actions that required only notification to the Office of the Vice Chancellor based on Section C of the TBR policy that I referenced earlier. Appropriate documentation has been provided to you. Again, these proposals allow the technical colleges to be more responsive to the needs of students, businesses, and industries, and these program modifications are provided for your review. Madam Chair, that concludes the summary of these program approvals for the board, and I recommend action based on this review.
Thank you very much. So these should be non-controversial routine requests that we receive. I would propose that we adopt these by unanimous consent, but if anyone has an objection and would prefer a roll call vote, please let me know. Hearing none, the proposed TCAP program approvals are adopted. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Reed. Dr. Fox, we have some non-mandatory fee requests, and this will require a roll call vote.
We do. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. This should be pretty short and sweet as well. Today, I'm presenting the non-mandatory fee request for the community colleges for FY25. You will recall that these were presented in quite a bit of detail during our committee chairs earlier this month. In addition, these items were included in the meeting materials sent today. Next slide, please. So this slide is the chart that should look familiar, again, presented at committee chairs. It is showing you all the non-mandatory fee requests received from the community colleges for FY25. You will see at the top that we have 10 of the 13 community colleges requesting to establish or unfreeze the online course fee at the standardized rate of $25 a credit hour. You will notice that for 2 of the colleges, this resulted in a decrease, which is noted there in red. The annual revenue dollars generated is estimated based on FY23 online credit hour average per school provided by our TBR data team. Again, just an estimate for purposes of this exercise. On the lower half of the table, you will see that Nashville State is requesting to establish an applied music fee at $75 a credit hour. 10 of our 13 colleges currently charge this fee. Nashville State operates these courses at a loss currently and would like to implement this fee to recover some cost for private lessons and independent study courses. Southwest has 3 current fee increase requests, one for the HESI exam, which is also requesting a name change, and shown here is the nursing exam fee, going from $47 to $50 a credit hour. They are also requesting that their nursing course fee and allied course fee increase by $5 a credit hour. All 3 are based on the increased cost of consumables in those programs. Southwest is also requesting to eliminate 2 fees, including the nursing lab fee and culinary lab fee. You can see those reductions in red listed on the table. Lastly, the Business Affairs Subcouncil also recommended removal of fees from our comprehensive fee list that are no longer relevant. These were included in your materials, and we have approximately 18 of these fees that are being eliminated. Madam Chair, in conclusion, staff recommends these non-mandatory fee requests as presented, but I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Anything for Dr. Fox? And if not, we need a motion to approve the non-mandatory fee request.
So moved.
Thank you, Regent White. And a second?
Second.
Regent Pilkington, thank you very much. Any discussion? If not, Mariah, you're up.
Regent Apple. Aye. Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Garten.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
Regent Pilkington.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Stevenson.
Aye.
Regent Spurgeon.
Aye.
Regent Varlin. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And now we reach our final action item and one of those bittersweet moments that we have sometimes all too often. Regent Varlin, would you do the honors for President Turpin?
Yes, I want to be able to see you. Don't you
Here she
hide back
is.
there.
Come on up this way.
I know. Come up here and sit down.
We were bragging on how beautiful she looks. Retirement
Yes.
fits her well.
It
I know.
does.
Regent Varlin will read your resolution.
Yes, and it is an honor and a pleasure to do this to my friend Dennis Edwards Turpin that I have known so long. One of the first people I met 13 years ago when I came to the board. So a resolution of appreciation for the service of Miss Dennis Edwards Turpin to the Tennessee Board of Regents. Whereas Ms. Danis Edwards Turpin has 35 years of service with the Tennessee Board of Regents, serving with Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Harriman, as a related math instructor, evening school coordinator, and assistant director prior to her appointment as president. She retired on February 29th, so only your retirement years will be a lot shorter, I guess, 2024, after serving 16 years as president. And whereas Ms. Turpin received a Bachelor of Science degree from Indiana's Tri-State University, a Master of Arts degree from Tusculum College, and an Education Specialist degree from Tennessee Technology University. And whereas she is a graduate of the Regents Academy Leadership Institute, Leadership Roane County, and Leadership East Tennessee. And whereas she has authored and submitted capital budget requests resulting in the appropriation of more than $43 million to replace the original 54-year-old campus. And whereas during her tenure as president, she increased the capacity of TCAT Harriman through expansion to include 5 off-campus locations and 15 high school locations. And whereas under Ms. Turpin's leadership, TCAT Harriman increased student enrollment by over 20% from 2009 to 2024 and led efforts that achieved job placement rates for her students of 85% and higher. And whereas under her leadership, the college increased enrollment by 15% FTEs during the disruptions created by the COVID-19 pandemic and the immense challenges it created for educational institutions. And whereas Ms. Turpin was the recipient of the Roane County Woman of the Year Award, the Roane County Business of the Year Award, the Skills USA Administrator of the Year Award, a Kiwanis Club George F. Hickson Fellowship Award, and the Skills USA James King Award. And whereas she recruited and enlisted private donors to provide more than $100,000 in scholarships for economically disadvantaged students. And whereas over her career, Ms. Turpin contributed to local and state workforce development efforts and collaborated with partners such as Stowers Machinery Corporation, the Gene Haas Foundation, Cummins Diesel, TGS, Patterson Home Appliances, Family Medicine Associates, and many others to expand the college's technical education footprint. And whereas she served on many Council on Occupational Education accreditation teams as both team leader and team member. And whereas she served on numerous boards and committees, including the Roane County Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, Leadership Roane County Alumni Association Board, Leadership East Tennessee Board, Kiwanis Club of Oak Ridge, Kiwanis Club of Roane County, American Technical Education Association, the Princess Theater Foundation Board, that's in Roane County, and the Roane Alliance Board. And whereas Ms. Turpin shall be missed by colleagues, faculty, staff, students, community leaders, and alumni, and whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents wishes to grant the title of President Emeritus as an honorary designation, and now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Ms. Danis Edwards Turpin for her contributions and leadership to the system and wishes her the very best in her retirement.
Are you offering that in the form of a motion?
I certainly am.
Thank you. And Regent Stevenson, I have a feeling you may want to offer a second to that
I
nomination.
do want to offer a second. It's an honor to honor my friend, a dedicated community servant, as you heard, and might mention a wonderful neighbor. Thank you, Danis, and I second that motion.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion, Chancellor?
Well, I just want to talk about the fact that Danis has always exemplified what a true leader looks like. Her commitment to her students, to that college, to TCAT Harriman is unparalleled. And through the course of your retirement, I hope it will continue to warm your heart at the thousands of lives that you have changed that have crossed your doors. And we are so much richer for having been allowed to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. I want to add something. I just want to add that I did the search for your replacement. Chris did a great job, going to do a great job, but it was incredible how much the people on the committee and her staff love her. Everybody just absolutely talked about her. I went to her retirement reception and she wouldn't let anybody talk about her, but behind her back, we were all, people were telling their stories. They were, you have really created a wonderful, wonderful world of supporters and people that have just gained so much from your involvement in their lives, and that was evident. So thank you so much.
And best of all, you all are staying part of the community because you're going to have a new campus soon. So
That's
don't be a
correct.
stranger.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Let us take care of one piece of business as you gather your thoughts because
Okay.
the floor will be yours momentarily. And with that, Secretary Perry, would you call the roll?
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Garten.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
Regent Pilkington.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Stevenson.
Aye.
Regent Spurgeon.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
The floor is yours. Thank you, President Turpin.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, Danny Varlin, and all the members of the Board of Regents. Some of what I'm going to say has already been echoed in here, but a lot of it will be in the form of a thank you, because it's not just one person that makes a campus happen. I'm honored to have this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering support of the college system of Tennessee, and specifically the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. Throughout my 35-year tenure at TCAT Harriman, I witnessed firsthand the impact of TBR's leadership and commitment to excellence. Your vision guided us through both challenges and triumphs, and your solid dedication to our mission has always been a source of inspiration. In all, I have worked in the system through 7 different chancellors.
Wow.
Okay, well, that makes me feel old. However, I can say that we have been most progressive under Chancellor Tidings. The support and resources provided by the governor's budget and distributed by the system office has been instrumental in our ability to deliver high-quality education using modern equipment and training methods to enhance our students' abilities to succeed and perhaps change the trajectory of their families' lives. And we've heard about that today. Your advocacy for workforce development and your recognition of the vital role that TCATs play in Tennessee's economy has been invaluable. Many have heard me say that at TCAT we serve 2 customers, the students and the employers who hire our students. A special thank you goes out to Regent Danny Varlin. I think we have a mutual love there. She's been very approachable as our local regent for the last 13 or 14 years. And new Regent Barry Stevenson, who is a great neighbor. You have to go to his pig roast too. And he's a long-time TCAT Harriman supporter, both monetarily, and then he has employed our graduates before. As I retired a little over 4 weeks ago, I'm filled with gratitude for the opportunities I have had to serve alongside such dedicated individuals, both at the campus and at the system office. The friendships I have made and the experiences I have shared will always hold a special place in my heart. I cherish knowing that many students have benefited from a TCAT style of technical education.
and it shows in the quality of jobs that they receive. I will always hold dear those that worked with me at the campus for their teamwork and dedication to their role and their craft and their trade. Now, let's get a little bit more personal. My husband's here today, so stand up. His name is Louis Turpin, and I thank him for supporting all my professional endeavors. Not long after we met, he said he was going to take a computer class at the Votex school. And you see, I was pretty new to the area. I had moved down from Michigan. We had a courtship, we were married, but he worked at the state garage and they were computerizing. He needed me to go to school with him because he could not type. Well, our experience in the class was good. He learned what he needed to learn. What I learned was that I could be a teacher there. And so I pursued that avenue. The other thing that I think is unique is the fact that his father graduated from the school in the electronics program many years ago. And his father was well known in the area for being a TV repairman and doing satellite dish installations. So you know how long ago that was. And it turns out that our granddaughter Savannah recently graduated from the cosmetology program, and she's a licensed cosmetologist. And she's also at Rhone State at this time. I worked my way up through several positions, and because I was very embedded in economic development and in the college, it really led to my position as president at the college. And I want to circle back to my husband because we are a TCAT family through and through. He retired from TCAT Athens with 25 years of service as their automotive technology instructor. So, it's through and through. Now, Chancellor Tidings and board members, thank you once again for your support and guidance. It has been an honor and a privilege to be a part of this remarkable journey. I'm confident that new President Chris Ayers, and he's sitting back there by my husband, will thrive and take TCAT Harriman to new heights, especially with a new campus. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The honor is all ours. And the fact that you are a TCAT family underscores what this organization is all about. I do not mean to be corny, but this is a family. And our family is 100,000 plus students strong and however many employers that represents and everyone sitting in this room. So we thank you all for your commitment to the Tennessee Board of Regents. That was very meaningful. Thank you so much. And as a family, we have some big things in store here over the next few hours together and these incredibly detailed sheets for each of us as well. But Chancellor, hit the highlights for us.
Absolutely. As a family, we are going to celebrate for the next 2 days. It's going to begin tonight with the reception. I know that the board members that have hotel rooms reserved at the Grand Hyatt, you can begin checking in at 4 o'clock. The round trip shuttle from the hotel to the reception at the Country Music Hall of Fame will start at 5:30 and will run continuously until 7:45. After that, I will not come pick you up off Broadway. Board members received a copy of the SOAR events and shuttle schedule from Mariah with a printed copy at your place now. And if you have any questions or any further comments about the evening tonight and tomorrow, Mariah, you all have her cell phone number. Please feel free to reach out to either her or myself. And we look forward to a great time enjoying the reception with our legislators tonight and tomorrow night finding out who our new colleges of the year are.
There he is.
Congratulations to all of you for being here. Thank you.
And then one more quick note, because June will be here before we know it. I think everybody has a note from Mariah that we are changing our location for the June board meeting to Jackson State. So make that change if you haven't already. Our quarterly meeting then is Thursday, June 13. And we are hoping that on Friday we'll have our festivities at the TCAT Blue Oval City with a little ribbon cutting activity. So lots more to look forward to there. But as always, more information is coming from Mariah. Once again, to the whole team, some of whom are at our next location, everybody who makes this possible, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. These are not easy events to pull off, and you guys always make it seem seamless, but we know you're those ducks with the feet paddling under the water. Regent Powers, I'm sorry, did you have something to add?
I just can't close this meeting without doing this. I'm sorry that Mark Gill is not here to see you in person. And he would be really disappointed if I didn't do this on his behalf, probably. So I was just going to say, thank you for bringing the beautiful spring garden inside from the outside with your beautiful attire. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please don't anybody take a picture and text this to Mark.
I don't know what to say. I'm sorry that I missed being in person, but
Quite all right. We always
thank you,
miss having
Misha.
you in person. Oh. Is there any further business to come before this board? If not, but if there's no objection, ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned. See you shortly.